Next, from rural LaSalle County, we go on a tour looking at new solar and wind energy projects being developed in Illinois. We'll hear about the costs and how much these projects are contributing to the state's electric generating capacity. We begin with an overview of the use of wind energy in Illinois, as described by Kevin Borgia, director of the Illinois Wind Energy Coalition. This runs about 30 minutes.
So I want to go over some basic facts just about the state of wind energy in the state of Illinois. So first, over on the side here, just some basic facts about where we are with wind in the state. We're 16th for wind potential, but we're number 4 for installed wind. That's for several reasons that I'll get into in a second. But we're really far ahead of our potential as far as states go. Currently, we have 2,700 megawatts of wind installed. It's enough to power about 660,000 homes, give or take. We've got, just in last year, we added 692 megawatts of new wind. Most of that is supplying other markets, utilities in other states, not our Illinois utilities. We have currently 800 megawatts under construction right now. Again, some of this is actually supplying Illinois utilities, but a lot of that is also supplying other states, TVA and other utilities. There are a whole lot more projects that are under development, though, that are in some stage of development. Companies out there trying to sign up leases for landowners, trying to get positioned to enter into the electric grid. That number's around 16,000 megawatts. I'll admit, a lot of that's not going to get built, but that just shows the level of interest that we're seeing in Illinois because of the resource that we have and the opportunity that exists in Illinois to tap our winds. And then, of course, we've got a percentage of power currently generated from wind. It's about 2%. However, there's a lot of ways to slice that number. The Illinois Power Agency technically purchases about 7%. Utilities are technically required to purchase 7%. Because of the way the law is implemented, actual electrons we use, it's about 2. So also, I'd like to make a little commercial for the fact that Chicago and the state of Illinois is a major hub for the wind energy industry. We have a lot of companies located in Chicago. We have some of them here. We've got Acciona. We've got folks from GE, Invenergy. But there's a number of other companies that have looked to Chicago to be a great spot to locate their corporate headquarters, if not manufacturing. You have manufacturing happening in Elgin, making gearboxes. You've got companies in Clinton rolling steel towers for turbines. Bradfoot Gear Works out in Cicero making gears. So you have a lot of both manufacturing and the business side happening in Illinois. A quick rundown of the wind projects, where they are in the state. We've got a total of 20 wind farms in the state of Illinois. 4 of them are currently under construction, including the Minunk Wind Farm, which is in Woodford County near Eureka. And that project is in the early stages of construction now. So we're seeing a lot of development currently happening. But again, there's a lot more interest in the state to build additional projects. When projects are built, and I'll give a quick commercial here for Dave Loomis's group. Dave's group has done, at Illinois State University, has done an analysis the past few years to look at what that means broad across the state of Illinois, what that means economically for Illinois. And just to rattle off a couple of the quick salient points, the overall economic impact, and this is just the first 2,400 megawatts of wind that was installed in the state. And again, we have more than that now. This information's almost a year old now, and actually Dr. Loomis has an update to this study coming out next week. And so we'll see even better numbers here. But as of last year, the most current data we have, it's $416 billion over the life of the projects in economic impact, $22 million in annual property taxes to rural Illinois. That's from the property taxes paid by the wind farms for having that equipment in their area. $10 million just for landowners who lease the land. They get $10 million to do nothing. You put a turbine on their land, and they get essentially a check every month or every year. That's around, again, 13,000 jobs. That means construction, maintenance, operations, and also manufacturing of the turbines and equipment that is manufactured in the state of Illinois. Payroll of over $762 million. A lot of times that is union labor. And ongoing permanent jobs, operations and maintenance for projects in the state of Illinois. We're looking at around 600 with an annual payroll of $35 million. And again, sometimes union there too. So we see a lot of benefit, and especially these are for rural Illinois. These are for rural communities, and that can be a really big thing for a lot of our communities throughout the state. So. A quick bit about the strengths and why Illinois is so attractive for wind developers. If you see this red area here, we've got good wind. We've got some of the best winds in the Midwest, but not as good as it gets. If you go out into the Dakotas, out into Nebraska, Kansas, there are better winds out there. But what they don't have is transmission lines. We've got a lot of transmission lines heading from central and southern Illinois into the load centers in Chicago, and basically wind farms can tie into that existing infrastructure. It's not the case in Texas, not the case in the Dakotas. There just aren't power lines. You have wind that's stranded. That's less so in Illinois. We also have a mandate in Illinois that a certain percentage of our electricity must come from renewable sources. That's been one driving factor. And then also another factor is that we have access to power markets. The map that I've got here of the U.S. is what's called the PJM Interconnect. This is the regional electric grid. And Illinois, as you can kind of see, is just over at the tail end, at the east end of the PJM Interconnect. PJM supplies power for about 50-some million people on the eastern seaboard, 13 states, I believe. And Illinois winds are among the strongest, if not the strongest, of all those states. A lot of those states have RPS mandates themselves, so Illinois becomes a great place for those states to procure their renewable energy because we have very strong wind, which means very cheap wind for those utilities out east. So. A bit about Illinois' renewable energy standard. This is an approximation on the top here about where we get our power from generally. It's about half coal, about half nukes, and then other. I think that other is increasing as gas prices have come down. And again, that's an approximation. But in 2025, we do have this renewable energy mandate, 25% of our energy sources, of our electricity coming from renewables. And there is a cost cap on that. It's a very hard cost cap. Can't raise consumer bills more than 2.015% over the 2007 rate. And that's a pretty hard cost cap. If the cost of renewables were to go above that, the utilities are actually allowed to reduce the amount of renewables that they have to buy. So that is capped, and Citizens Utility Board has supported that for that reason. I want to talk about another study that the state of Illinois did before I finish up here. This study from the Illinois Power Agency just came out last year. I talked about the cost impact of wind. Well, you haven't talked about the cost suppression impacts of wind. Basically, wind power can reduce power prices. And in short, this is because wind has no fuel cost. So when you're in a real-time market, wind is going to bid what its real-time fuel costs are. Sometimes that's zero. Sometimes a wind farm can say, we'll sell you power at 1 penny a megawatt hour. And this is an extreme example. But what that does is that brings the overall market price for all energy sources down. And that's a good thing for ratepayers. That brings the cost down for ratepayers in the state of Illinois. According to the IPA analysis, as much as $176 million in Illinois. That doesn't necessarily mean, that doesn't translate one-to-one to $176 million in ratepayer savings, but it just shows what the wholesale prices did because of the integration of wind in the state of Illinois.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Grand Ridge Solar Project. This project's built on 140 acres here close, just outside of Streator, Illinois. This is the equipment that we purchased for this project is GE's first, I'm going to look to who's there, first largest installation to date. There's 20 of the inverters that you see behind us throughout the project. There's 155,000 individual solar panels. You do see a little bit of dust on the panels, but as construction winds down and we do get the grass planted, part of the last step is to come back and do a final wash on them. When you do have trucks and tours coming through, it does kick up a lot of dust. So the facility has started producing test power here at the beginning of July. Probably today we're going to get the okay. We're interconnected on ComEd's distribution line, not their bulk electric, with 2 circuits that are heading south to a distribution line about 2 miles from the project. So the project will be staffed from our Grand Ridge wind site that you see just to the north of us. There we have 13 technicians, 4 Met Tower technicians. We also have Jacob Ursua, who's the site manager, an admin position that work. It's Well, it looks like it's always in the back of the LaSalle nuclear station, but it's about 10 miles to the northeast from here. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. What questions does everybody have? I'd let my presentation guide it from there.
I got a question.
Sure.
Were there any surprises as you were putting this together, things you didn't expect, in terms of siting or production from the solar panels, or anything that the next person who does the next site should know about?
So from production, we're just getting into it, just producing test power here. So we don't have that answer yet. Siting, I think the biggest challenge, and I'm going to look back to Sam Hammett, who is our construction manager on site here, and he can give me the nod or speak to it. I think
we have our lenders, engineers, Black and Beach. They've got several projects going on. They say this is by far the best quality they've seen. We haven't really run into too many obstacles. As you can see, we left the farmland as is. All the panels roll with the terrain. We've had a very mild winter, so production was up. I don't know if we can expect this in the future, but things went well on this project.
Yep.
And again, how much energy will this produce, and when does it go online?
This is a 20 megawatt installation.
How does that compare to homes being powered, say?
Oh, I haven't been asked that of our solar project yet. So I'm going to guess, I'm going to guess in the range of 8 to 12,000 homes. So.
And how competitive is this power versus coal-fired plants?
I'm going to defer to Joe on that one.
Solar, I think it's pretty common knowledge that the cost of solar panels, have come down dramatically in the last 2 or 3 years and continue to do so. I mean, solar power, more than any other form of energy, your cost curve is, it's coming off a cliff. Ultimately where that goes, it's hard to know, where the manufacturing of solar panels, where that happens is a question. I think that
But it starts at a higher cost per kilowatt, or?
Solar I think is higher than wind. If you ask that question in a year or 2 or 3, the one thing for sure is solar is going to be less expensive in a year and 2 and 3 than it is today. Because of the efficiencies in manufacturing the equipment. So I think solar has a very, very, no pun intended, bright future as far as that goes, because it is both utility scale like this and smaller scale. The costs are coming down exponentially faster than anything else out there.
What's the life cycle of a plant like this?
It's a 20-year design life for a plant like this, but we hope to keep to the O&M and keep up on the maintenance and hopefully make it last even longer than that. So,
like the Martian rovers, you could go for 4 or 5 times as long. Right?
Exactly. So solar panels, just so everybody knows, they're over time they do degrade, but it's a percentage per year. It's not as Joe said, it's not a cliff as far as their power output or production. So,
and everything here, it's fairly modular, so that it's you're able to replace equipment very easily. It's for example, I think replacing parts on a wind turbine is a more complicated issue than something you would see here, where this is what you're looking at. While it's not prefab,
right.
It's very modular in its nature and lends itself to replacement and a long-term life cycle.
It is the equipment used, or that GE used in their inverters it's not the same, but it's all very similar to what's used in their converters on the wind side. So the learning curve for our technicians to do the O&M on wind and then come over here and do it on solar, there is a little bit of one there, but it's not a steep curve for us. So.
And one thing that I learned when I was out here the last time was that the inverters, they actually came to the site already mounted in concrete, so that all we had to do, literally, you clear the pad and you lay the ready to go inverter right there. That's how the process has been simplified.
And that converts from DC to AC, or what?
Correct. Yep.
What was the total cost of the project?
I'm going to defer to Joe on that one.
I don't know what the all-in final cost is.
You know, it's, you know, I think, you know, with wind it's a little easier. On the solar side, you know, I'm not sure what our all-in cost is.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say.
Yeah,
Good answer.
Yeah.
What is the,
Question.
Yes.
the delta, I mean, between summer months, obviously sunnier months of the year, and during the winter time, what is the difference? I mean, what's the outlook as far as
What we see,
projected to be?
what we're looking for a capacity factor.
Yes.
So on the wind side, we look for like a minimum capacity factor of like 30%. And I think we're striving for the same capacity factor on our solar projects as well, as
Even
far as
during the winter months.
correct, because they will produce during a cloudy day. So, yeah,
The dust or snow have an effect on the power?
it does. Yep. Yeah, the dust you see here during construction obviously will be taken care of. It won't be as big a deal. This is all going to be returned to grassland. And then we joke that, you know, then the sheep will be coming later to take care of the land. As far as snow, the panels are black, so as the sun peeks out at any point during the day, they do heat up and they'll shed snow and ice pretty quickly. So,
This might be a question for the GE guys, but where do you get your solar panels? Do you manufacture them within the GE umbrella, or do you procure them?
We're in the process of building a plant in Colorado for manufacturing these thin film panels. These particular panels, I'm not sure where they were sourced from, but the plan is to, over the next couple of years, ramp up that factory in Colorado. And that'll be our main production facility for thin film panels.
How long have you been manufacturing the panels? And what I'm wondering is, you know, Moore's law in computers, are we getting progressively a higher and higher efficiency output per solar cell over the last 30 years?
And we've seen a tremendous increase in the efficiency of these thin film panels, which is a little different from crystalline silicone. These kind of panels are better at producing power in low light situations and not direct sunlight situations. So even on a cloudy day, they still produce power, whereas other types of panels kind of pretty much go to zero production when it clouds up and there's not direct sunlight. And we initially, I think, had about 11% efficiency for the panels, and that was when we first kind of started making these kind of panels a couple of years ago, and since then we're now seeing efficiencies up 3 or 4% better than that, which is really quite remarkable in terms of improvement over just a couple of years.
How's it as for an investment? What's your return on investment?
You know, I don't know. I'd have to defer to maybe Invenergy, one of our good customers, on something like that. But like Joe said, we see a lot of promise here. One of the main points is that thin film panels are a lower cost alternative to other kinds of panels. And as Joe indicated, the name of the game is to really get that cost down so it can be more competitive with other forms of energy.
so to put that in perspective, 2 to 3% gain. Like here, as you see, you want to walk and count them for me, but there's 155,000 panels here. So a 2 to 3% gain, still to get the same megawatt. You can think of the reduction in land area that you need to still get the same megawatt output. I remember touring GE's facility in Schenectady, and they had a goal, I think, for their Colorado plant of 15% efficiency overall. So. So, all right, so the flip side, welcome to the Grand Ridge Wind Farm. So, unlike the solar installation, this facility is spread out over 26,000 acres. So it's spread out over 26,000 acres. Now in saying that, each turbine takes up approximately, or takes out of production about a third of an acre, which includes the access road to each machine, and then the pad you see around here. The facility is rated 210 megawatts, as opposed to our solar facility, which is 20 megawatts. It is interconnected with the bulk electric system here. So we tie in to what Kevin was talking earlier. We tie in with ComEd's bulk electric. We're in the PJM market with this facility. We do have plans, as also I heard talk in the presentation. This facility was built in 4 phases. It actually has a 5th phase. We have a potential capacity of 300 megawatts here. We also have additional line capacity reserved on ComEd's lines heading out of Exelon's nuclear facility for even potential future development. The machine and equipment we use these are GE 1.5 SLE machines. They're 80-meter hub height, which is 260 feet to the center of the rotor. The blade diameter is 77 meters, 230 feet swept diameter of the rotor. Each machine is capable of producing 1.5 megawatts at full capacity. So 140 machines times 1.5, 210. So
how fast does the wind have to go to get to full capacity?
These machines reach peak output at around 12 meters per second, which times 2.2, about 25 miles an hour. So, and then they cut out, they have an upper limit speed of 25 meters per second, which is almost 60 miles an hour, but that's on a 10-minute average, so you can even have higher gusts than that in that 10 minutes. So.
And do we have enough sustainable wind to generate these on an ongoing basis at this location?
Yes, we do. This facility's output is about the 32% capacity factor, with the highest being in January and February. So.
We've got, I think, there's over 100 families out here that are benefiting directly from hosting the infrastructure. I don't know, I don't know where we rank in terms of taxpayers in the county, but I would imagine we're into the 7 figures in terms of what we're paying into local government, here in the area. So, wind is unique amongst really all the energy sources, local participation, and because we're standing on someone's property, the family's making money because this is here, and not just small money. We have stories from our landowners around the country, that your turbine put my kid through college, basically, and this is a way for rural families, really, across the country to. It's like another crop they're harvesting, and I think there's a couple things that you can sort of see and or experience while you're here. One is you can see how close up you can farm to wind. In Texas you'll see the same thing, but you'll see cows grazing right up to the base of the turbine. The other thing I just want to bring up, since we're standing here, this turbine isn't running because we're right under it, but if you look around, a number of the other turbines are running. I know some folks who work in government here, you'll occasionally hear stories about wind turbines being noisy. I'll leave it to you to decide whether you like the way they look. But I think one thing we probably can agree on is, these turbines are producing electricity over here. These are not loud. You really don't hear much of anything other than maybe the car engine or the wind. And so I want, if you take one thing away from this, I think it might be that this is, not only is emission free, but but the new turbines run very, very quietly at distances that we're not that far away from what you're looking at here.
Do you have an idea of the distances between the units here? Ballpark?
In Illinois, it's not. It's more by the setbacks. Right. So working with the county, like here in LaSalle County, they have certain setbacks. Of course, in saying that, LaSalle County just took them. When they started looking for their zoning, they went to other counties that were successful with wind. So you have to be 500 feet from a right-of-way. You have to be 1,200 feet from a participating landowner's house. You have to be 2,000 feet away from a non-participating landowner's house. 500 feet away from a non-participant's land. So once you make these little bubbles, that pretty much in Illinois kind of dictates where we can place the machines. And saying that,
not as dense as it can be as well.
No, if you go read your GE manual as far as wind and sighting, you can have them up to 3 rotor diameters apart from each other. Now, in saying that, if the wind is blowing down a row of machines, the first one's producing full power, then less and less and less, you have wake loss. But for sites like our West Texas sites, where the prevailing wind is from the southwest, it makes more sense to line them up in rows. So the little bit we lose if the wind is coming, you know, from the northwest is negligible. Yep.
So just to jump on that, like I'm from California, and they're all lined up
Yeah.
on the hillside all over.
Yep.
Either going into Palm Springs, in Northern California, and Southern California. Is it because the way that the wind is blowing that they just the position of the turret is that?
I'm gonna let Jacob answer that.
I'm from California as well.
So you know those ones.
Yeah,
Some of them are really old.
Santa Ana winds, right?
Yeah. So yeah, typically those are all prevailing west winds. So they do line them up to where they're facing the prevailing wind as far as, so the lines of or rows of turbines are all north to south for that on purpose. That's Palm Springs and even up toward the Altamont area. They're all that way. Tehachapi, not so much, just because of the hills. So those are trying to utilize the ridge tops to get most of the wind. They're growing into the desert there, and they're starting to go into the northwest road or north-south roads as well. So siting issues there, basically just land resources is an issue, at least in Tehachapi.
General Electric Company's been invested in gear trains, whether it be marine propulsion for submarines and battleships and aircraft carriers, or for power generation applications. So we took that business from Enron, and we've invested a lot of money into that. What we consider to be the weak link in utility grade turbines was that gear train and that drive train. So we've invested a lot of technology and investment into improving that, and I think that's what Jake was kind of saying. We, you know, those like Joe mentioned, that the earlier vintages of wind turbines had the industry got a little bit of a bad rap from some of that, and now we're off to a new level of technology. In fact, this particular machine now is a few years old, the 1577 we call it now. We've evolved this machine in just the past 3-4 years to a 1.7 megawatt machine with a 100-meter diameter rotor. And if those machines were here, you would see a project like this being more like a 40% net capacity factor as opposed to 30%. So when we were talking earlier about how the advancement of technology is what can ultimately help the industry kind of wean its way off of federal subsidies, it's those big step changes in energy production from improved technology that really are a big part of it.
Well, that was going to be a question I want to ask. We've been investing as a society into this. Spain just had to take away their underwriting of the solar. In an era where government is facing, in some municipalities, bankruptcy, the feds were about to go off an economic cliff. How viable are wind farms without the energy subsidies from taxpayers? And given the efficiencies you're having, does GE project that there's going to be a point, it's in the next decade perhaps, where they can just be a standalone investment?
Well, I think that's where the industry we'd like to see the industry go. But again, in a gradual steps with good savvy developers like Invenergy, they're always going to be looking for, good areas to invest and things that make sense for them and using good technology. We're optimistic that, with a renewal of the PTC for at least 5 to 6 years, potentially on a declining scale over that time, potentially would allow the industry to kind of work towards, not necessarily requiring subsidies, but any of those kind of equations always depend on what's going on with the price of alternative fuels such as natural gas.
And also, more importantly, one point to make. When you look at wind and you look at the all-in cost to, let's say, government, not just the federal government, but state and local governments, a facility that's getting production tax credits, we're putting back in to local government more than we're getting out. And so this is, if you look at government writ large, this facility is a net positive because of the contributions we're making to the local governmental community here. So I want to make that point clear because that seems to get
lost in the debate. Right?
It gets lost in the debate of why are we subsidizing you when in fact on an all-in basis this facility is a net contributor to the public welfare. And that's not even getting into, the cost of emissions and how much is it worth to have this emission-free energy. That we're not even talking about that yet. I'm just talking about on a dollar-for-dollar basis.
And it also doesn't get into the other federal energy subsidies from other energy sources. I mean, every energy source is subsidized, whether it's nuclear, whether it's oil and gas with the percent depletion allowance, whether it's certain incentives for new pipelines. And I'm not saying that those, I'm not opposing those, but I'm saying that it's important for folks to understand that every energy source has its subsidies, many of which, especially for the oil and gas industry, go back 80 to 100 years. And they're in place, they're permanent. The difference with the renewable production tax credits is that they expire, which makes them inherently political, because every few years we have to have this political debate again. And it's a debate that we don't have to have about a lot of other energy subsidies that do exist for coal, oil, gas, and nuclear especially.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.